All right, so here we are with AMP Year 1, Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves. We're in, September 2016, so a fair chunk of months after the last episode was played or even recorded. To my right, I have X-Plane Y.
Kevin playing Nod.
Ian, the DM.
Nicole playing Reagan, who was a Bulk.
Yes.
Right, that was the name.
What was your superhero name?
Raph.
And Devin, who played Alan Smithy,
Yeah.
who was an elemental.
AKA Lemegatron.
Yeah, no, who was an elemental. You guys fucking ruined that the first fucking session.
The whole game was name ruining. That's how it
And yeah, Kevin's character was a psych, a mentat,
A psych.
Oniromancer.
an oniromancy. Alright, I guess I'll take the lead for this because this is the takedown session. We've done one of these previously where we compared Exalted to Godbound, and this episode will be nowhere as near controversial and nowhere as near, I don't want to say complete, but I want to say final.
Yeah. No, this is not a final opinion. This is we played, listeners would have heard, this will be...
We went through every year one
Yeah.
adventure.
Yeah, so we played 7 adventures. Listeners would have heard 6 adventures because one got lost, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
So, okay, let's give some recap. So, AMP Year 1 is made by Third Eye Games, headed by one Eloy LaSanta. And I heard about AMP when they were kickstarting AMP Year 3 some fucking how. I don't even remember how that came about. But I did, and I thought it looked neat because of the power tree options. It reminded me of a lot of the better MMOs where you have like all these different trees to fill out and stuff. And some of the art looked cool, and it reminded me a lot of Aberrant, but if Aberrant wasn't shit. So I kickstarted it, and either I kickstarted it at a high enough level that I got AMP Year 1, or I went and found AMP Year 1 and took a look at it, and we ended up giving it a try.
Yeah.
And yeah, we did those. We did all of the Year 1 adventures, and we built 3 fairly diverse characters. So I guess we'll start with Ian. Ian, how did you like running AMP Year 1 from a GM perspective? What did the game do that made it simpler to run? Were its themes like super interesting to engage with as far as making stories go? I know we didn't make a lot of stories because we went with the pre-adventures. Anything that stood out?
Well, it's a simple D20 system where you had 2 abilities, and you had a bunch of abilities, and then any kind of thing you wanted to do in the world, you used 2 of those abilities, and that was your stat modifier.
Yeah, that was the skill system / combat system,
which was fairly simple, easy to use, easy to understand. The juice was an interesting aspect because it was a quote-unquote limited resource that allowed you to use your powers. I don't know if we quite ran it as limited as we could have. It might have made our game different.
It's kind of fairly free-flowing.
Yeah, we kind of made almost unlimited juice for the characters. Not
Plus,
quite,
also,
but-
I don't think most of our powers even used it.
Yeah.
Like, we specifically used, bought powers that wouldn't spend a lot of it, because we're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
You only get, 4 of them.
Yeah.
Well, so you got juice from basically everything. So
Yeah, you did. You started with, I think, 3, and then once combat started, you got an extra 1, and then once you got to half health, you got another 1. And if you did something amazing, you got an extra... There's a number of ways to get juice, but I think in the rules, there is ways of, doing...
Changing the scale.
Yeah, different tiers of, how you're going to
run the game. Whether it's going to be a high juice game, which is kind of what our game was, or a low juice game where, players get 1 juice, and then when battle starts, they get 1 more juice. And then it's not until they get down to, the last 3 health that they get any more juice, which would make it a very different game. So as far as mechanics-wise, fairly simple to run, fairly simple to build your guys' characters, if I remember correctly.
I think we did it all in an afternoon.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just basically picking what you wanted took the most time.
Which was, that's always the funnest part of character building is deciding, do I want to be super fast? Do I want to be super strong? Do I want to be super smart? Do I want to... Which is fun. And then as far as world building, it was, the world was built for us. As we said, we took all the adventures. The adventures were a lot of fun. little bit railroady it felt at times,
Mm.
but
Yeah.
it could have been just we're used to a bit more open worldy sort of games.
Mhm.
So I was mentioning to Nicole on the drive here that this game, the way it felt to me was it would have been a lot of fun to do the 7 different adventures that they have with 7 completely different characters. Like, write up new characters for each adventure. Because as we said, it only took a very short amount of time to write up a character. So kind of tailor-make characters specifically for the adventures so that the adventures played out the most fun, quote-unquote.
To counter that, I think most of the adventures or most of AMP actually comes with pre-mades specifically for that, for like conventions and shit.
Yeah, and so, using those pre-made characters to run the adventures, and then almost, instead of where, if you listen to our Exalted campaign, where we're, the main characters, I guess you could say, and we control the flow of the story to a degree, whereas have AMP run it as you're just people in the world, and everything's going on around you, and you don't actually directly control the story.
That exists, and that is called a metaplot.
Yeah.
And it is one of the more reviled pieces of RPG technology in the last decade.
Yeah, some people like it, but I definitely it's not my favorite thing. If the world existed, and this is how amps came to be or whatever, that'd be fine. And then you're in the world, go and do. This is a superhero campaign, so you're probably gonna want to make a superhero character. Other than that, go. That's better. But having all these events that's happening in game that basically makes it say, A, you can't interfere with it or else you fuck up the entire game.
There's 4 books coming up after Amp Year 1.
And B, it'll affect your character, but you have no input in it, kind of thing.
Yeah, I feel there was a very severe meta plot in the whole game, especially I think it was really obvious in the White Knight bit with the Necromancer, where that one woman shows up and you can't save her no matter what.
Yeah, White Knight.
Yeah.
You're totally outclassed, and you would die completely if it weren't for this one NPC with the spotlights on.
Yeah.
I think she has her own custom power set for that adventure that's introduced in that book that you can take.
Yeah, that's definitely not interesting for me. That kind of gaming isn't interesting for me.
In defense... sorry.
I was going to go off on a different tangent, so you can go here.
In defense of the meta plot, here's the thing. There are a billion superhero games on the market, and there have been a billion super games before. And they're all the same. 4-color, you play capes, and you go about doing cape stuff. Someone writes up a Dr. Dinosaur, and you fight him. And AMP takes a lot of its DNA from Aberrant, even in conception. And Aberrant was a 90s or early 2000s kinds of toss-up to that what was going on. Aberrant played like it was a superhero game in the advertising material, and then when you played it, you realized you were playing an early 90s Cronenberg horror film, where everyone thinks you're a superhero, but you're really a monster, and you're becoming more and more monstrous as time goes on. And it was even riddled like a cancer with all these different meta plot issues, super NPCs, Divis Mall is the most famous if you want to Google that. And all these problems that were very iconic of White Wolf at the time. Things people didn't really have fun playing, but had a lot of fun reading, or maybe had a lot of fun White Room theory craft building characters around. Mm-hmm. Now, where AMP differs from this is Aberrant was fairly sandbox, but it as long as you understood that you were playing people that had cancer as opposed to people that had superpowers. AMP takes a bit from Orpheus, I find, where there are 5 years to AMP. Like, the name of the game's AMP Year 1. That's the core name. And then there's a year for each one afterwards. And I think what's happening with these adventures, with the timeline that's very prevalent in the first book, is that AMP is like Orpheus, where there are 5 years, and you play through all 5 of these years, and then that's it. We just got AMP Year 3 Kickstarted. We haven't even seen the PDF yet. It's coming out within the next month or so, I think.
Oh, cool.
Which will be neat. But it's very clear that when 5 is done, I don't think there is a afterwards that's going to be happening. Which isn't bad, it's just, this has been done before by a few games that, if you want to do something like this, where you're playing basically a story, and you're repeating that story every time you play AMP, you have to be able to pull it off in a way that you'll want to replay it. You'll want to revisit Year 1 and go all the way through 5.
Personally, I like some of the railroady stuff. Myself, like playing wise, I don't mind, playing through a story. I don't know, as you say, replayability wise. I don't know. Like, I think I'd play through it once the way it's meant to be, and then after that, I think I'd be like, okay, well, let's year one kill off this main character, and then have the GM or DM or whatever you want to call them, kind of create, knowing what's supposed to happen. What would the different events, and that's kind of on your play group to brainstorm what would happen if year one, instead of the president being shot at the end, he wasn't shot.
Oh, he's an important character. He comes back as a monster in the third game.
Exactly. So what, as it goes down the line, because you've played through and you kind of know how it's supposed to end, then have it almost, you could even tie it in with one of the characters who has time abilities. Yeah. And you basically throw a character who goes back in time and is like, I know what's going to happen. Let's try and stop this.
Yeah, but is anyone really going to want to play through these storylines twice?
Well, this is the question. Will anyone care enough? Because all the time we were playing, I was thinking of the superfan. And what I mean is AMP is an indie game by a very indie studio. Third Eye Games does Ninja Crusade. They do AMP. They do a few others they're fairly interesting, but they're very indie. And I'm thinking of the superfan. And is him and his group going to play AMP Year 1 to death until AMP Year 2 comes out? And AMP Year 2's out. So are they going to do 1 and 2 till 3 comes out? 3's not even out yet. Will they do 1, 2, and 3? How can you have these people who will get together every week for, let's say, a few years? Let's say Year 5 doesn't come out for like another 3 years or another 2 years, like the final book.
Yeah.
Are you going to have these guys who are going to just keep playing this game over and over because they're really enthusiastic about it and not be paralyzed by decision fatigue? Because you can't make huge changes to the setting or to the NPCs without knowing what's going to happen at the very end. And this was something Orpheus was able to solve. I'm not going to say completely, but it had a pretty good grasp on that by each book in Orpheus being very distinct types of games. Like, the entire pretense of Orpheus, where your projector's working for a company, doesn't exist past book 1. So if you all played book 1 of Orpheus and didn't know the other 4 existed and just kept being, corporate people, you could still play that game to death and then be completely surprised that book 2 comes out and changes things up.
Yeah.
And what I've found with looking at AMP Year 2 is things don't change.
It escalates.
Yeah, it's an escalation of the same.
Yeah.
So if we were super fans, if we were really, really into this, I would be terrified to interact with any of the characters or try to kill them, because it'd be like, well, if we kill them, what happens in book 4? What happens in book 5? Will we have derailed everything? Will we have to retcon it? Will we have ruined it? I want to experience the meta plot as Third Eye Games is producing it.
Yeah, and then you can't. So basically, that means that if you're interested in the meta plot, that means you can't actually interact with any of it and can't use any of the NPCs, essentially. Otherwise, you might ruin it.
Basically, this game is going to be best once it's completed.
But it's a baby and it's starving and it needs fans and money now.
Yeah, so
it needs people playing it to find things they like about it to make a.
The only thing I could see for replayability is joining the different factions.
Yes. Yeah. It's Fallout scenario here.
Yeah.
You start from year 1, you join a different faction, you see how it plays out from their perspective.
Yeah. I think a big thing is that there's all these major important characters, and they're just piled into every story. Like, none of them are like free.
Yeah. They're a meta plot. They're like Divis Small and Team Tomorrow or the Aberrants or any of those people from Orpheus that show up. The sample characters in Orpheus are actually important characters that show up later in the plot.
But like, not only are they characters that exist in the world that you can't interact with or else it's a problem, but also they jam it down your throat in an adventure. It's like, this character is here.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't do this adventure without this character being here.
Also, they're kind of an antagonist, but you can't actually defeat them because...
And again, if you legitimately as a group want to experience the meta plot, not only can you not do it because they show up in future things, but you would feel shitty about doing it because you're ruining your own fun.
Yeah.
That's the perspective I kind of want to bring to the table here. Not just what we felt, but how would someone who actually likes the meta plots deal with this? And I think they'd be paralyzed every time. Also,
there's the, on a different tangent, the fact that the adventures are quests or whatever you want to call them.
Adventures.
They were fun enough for the most part, but you also can solve them in like 2 seconds if you go about it a different way than what the game expects you to do.
If you have the right powers,
Yeah, if you have the right powers, or if you just think outside the box.
Now,
Like, the school one, we solved in like 2 seconds, and then we finished it, and we left, and we're like, so you guys want to do another adventure? Because we solved that.
Yeah.
now
Like, literally 5 minutes.
to the game's credit, AMP is not intended for you just to play through the adventures. They're supposed to be there as a starting point for you to make up your own game. And one of the conceits of us playing was we wanted to do everything by the book as possible. So if we were to play this game more traditionally to how we would play it, and we were already skirting the line with our characters and how fucking insane they were.
Skirting it, okay.
But
we passed the
We were
line
crazy
a
as
long
fuck,
time
but at
ago.
least we, did the quest.
we tried our damnedest. We didn't ignore them. We didn't say quests were dumb. We went right in. We're like, we want to do this. Had we played this game traditionally, we would have ignored every single one of those plot points and done our own thing until time would have passed and we'd be in year 2.
Murdered the queen bee, taken over that whole organization.
Like, hit her in the head with a tire iron until she stopped moving, and then take off her bee crown that I assume she has, wear it on our heads covered in blood, and be like, now we're John Stamos and Clone High, we're Prom King.
Which is basically what we did in the final episode, where those assassins, those rival...
Were being shitty to us.
So we murdered them. And at like a top floor.
Yeah!
Ian, did you
we
invent?
melted them.
Did you invent one brand new AMP NPC for this game?
I did.
Did you?
Yes.
Was it Beastmaster?
Well, yes.
Oh, yeah,
Beastmaster.
Oh, yeah,
Beastmaster.
Dr. Doors.
Dr. Doors.
You invented Dr. Doors?
Yeah.
I thought he was an NPC in the game.
No. I invented, Beastmaster, Dr. Doors. I also invented Cabe's character, because
Who?
Cabe invented Cabe's character.
Oh, he was here for one session.
Oh, that guy! Your friend!
Our
My
main,
friend, yeah.
Frost or whatever, right?
No, he
No, the
wasn't
other guy.
Frost. He was the guy with the bear arms.
He had the right to bear arms, remember?
I don't remember. I remember him being here, but I thought he played Frost.
No.
Alright, so that's 3.
What about that psycho kid?
Psycho.
No,
Killer.
He's an established
Yeah,
character.
I
Okay.
don't think I created more than those 3.
Alright, so one of them was a PC, so
Yeah.
you invented 2 NPC
Two
amps,
NPCs, and
and we went through 7 entire
that was
adventures.
only because it was that was on the first session too. I created those guys because we weren't going through the.
We ended up, the first session was a module,
And he made things really easy for us in the school episode, where we could just load all the people we chloroformed.
Yeah, Dr. Doors was so powerful. I assumed he was a book NPC.
Yeah, no, Dr. Doors, I did make him a little bit more powerful than the book, kind of.
Maybe that'd be the
Not by
detriment
a
of that
ton.
adventure then.
Yes, by a little bit, but not by much. Like,
Yeah.
I made him able to teleport to anything he's opened, basically, whereas the book is like, you can teleport to anything in 100 kilometers. And I'm like,
yeah,
well,
even with 100 kilometers, we could have done whatever we damn well please.
So
Yeah.
I was like, is there really, like,
Unless we're in
instead of-
Antarctica, this isn't going to affect us.
I was like, okay, well,
Why not
instead of
Uncle?
him being able to go anywhere within 100 kilometers, he can just go to anything that he's open. Because then it's like, okay, you've never been in your neighbor's house. You can't teleport into your neighbor's house. I don't care that it's 20 feet away. So I figured that was the balancing in my
Mhm.
mind.
Well, even with the 100-kilometer one, you could just open it, like,
A
go every
door.
100 miles, open a door,
Yeah.
go through it.
And then open another door.
Yeah,
It would just
and
be our
then-
characters walking through, like, a convenience store, into the bathroom,
And
disappearing.
then, yeah,
He'd have
keep
been
going
fine.
until he was out of like 4 juice, at which case he would be like 400 kilometers away.
Here's an energy drink.
And yeah, exactly. So
The juice controls your travel. So, so we didn't need to have a need to invent new any NPCs because there are many in AMP Year
and
One.
they're great. I mean, there are complex characters, and I could have done them differently.
Funny story, Stacey Winters, actual real fucking human being who the character's named after, who reached out to me on RPG.net.
Oh,
We were so mean to that character.
she started talking to us?
Really?
Yeah, she started texting,
She's like, "You blew me
Facebook
up with
Messenger
what?"
me. Not Facebook messaging,
Is the
RPG.net
character
Messenger.
named after her?
It's
or-
named after her.
Oh,
She was. I'm not too clear what it was. I think she might have been I think she made that character for like a con game or beta testing,
oh neat.
and now she's a character. And in like book 2 and 3, she becomes an insane cannibal monster.
We tried to blow her up with nitroglycerin.
We tried to blow her up with nitroglycerin.
How did you feel about that?
She thought it was great. She was in really good spirits about it. It was pretty
Actually,
cool.
Everybody, because we were reached out by a few other people from the AMP community and the AMP creators. Even.
Yeah, Eloy follows us on Twitter.
So, I mean, the AMP community is great, and they're very wonderful for just having fun with the game. So that's one huge point in the game's favor.
Yeah, Eloy seems great. He's not atrocious like some other devs we've interacted with. Nicole pointed at me because my name's Devin, so devs, very good, Nicole. But as far as the game goes, I think. Oh yeah, that's. As far as the game goes, yeah. The first book needed a section to tell you how it was all going to play out in broad strokes.
Yeah, it's actually interesting that
all the way up to year 5.
The timeline comes before character creation in the book.
That's fine. That makes sense.
Well, no, like I mean, this is.
I understand
maybe
the statement that you're trying to infer. I get that.
Yeah.
That is a statement of the game before character creation. We're going to tell you how the game's going to play out timeline-wise. I get that.
Which is cool,
But if you're going to do an Orpheus-style meta plot, or if you're going to do a kind of, we're going to break this game up into... Years are breathtakingly short, depending on what kind of games you're playing. So, if you're going to do that, then you need to give people more concise information about how it's going to turn out so they know what to avoid in anticipation of what they're going to be reading next. Yeah. I mean, it's the internet, so if you wanted all these books, you could just get them, whatever. But, again, cut back to that superfan who's like, I bought Amp Year 1, and we're going to all play it, and we're all excited for it, but we don't want to spoil Amp Year 2 before I buy it, but we also don't want to fuck up the game before we buy Amp Year 2 and have to redo our campaign.
Yeah.
I guess they could just redact stuff where it's like, oh, that person actually survived. Or...
Yeah.
Like I say, without having to retcon their own game.
Yeah.
In the event they, legitimately want to go through that meta plot.
Which takes a lot of agency away, unfortunately. So,
but people like that. And that's fine.
For me, I would have preferred if the factions were set up like they were. Like, they have their motivations, you know what they are, they're well fleshed out or whatever. And then you have, like, their goals and stuff, but there's not so much of a hard timeline. It's just, these are what these organizations want, and your characters can interact with them or whatever.
Yeah.
That's much more my
I
style.
did expedite some of the stuff in the plot, just because the nature of...
Yeah, and that's expected in any game, so that's fine. It's not like there was a rule we were breaking other than our own kind of... We were doing kind of our own self-imposed rules.
Yeah.
I didn't like the... Okay, as a whole, I didn't like the factions, but individually I liked factions.
What do you mean?
As a whole, I thought the factions were fairly weak.
Like they're...
Like, if you put all the factions together in a big pot, I would label that pot weak.
They're very cliche.
Yeah, individually,
Also,
though, I liked parts of each individual faction. I thought they were good, but taken all together, I did not like them.
Also, like, the organization that's supposed to be the good guys is so clearly evil. It's like, they're evil, they're sterilizing people, and, like, all this other stuff. They're clearly evil.
And I don't know if that's leading to stuff in later years, or if that's just unintentional.
I mean, that happened in Aberrant. Team Tomorrow and the Utopia Foundation turned out to be secret bad guys that are sterilizing the Aberrants.
Right?
Except it's just, out in the open in this one.
Yeah.
Well, it's not fully out in the open. Because they don't tell their members that they're...
Oh, never mind. Then, it's just like Project Utopia and Team Tomorrow in Aberrant, then.
Yeah.
Which is fine, but Aberrant had a lot more nuance to it, and has had 20 years of hindsight to look back on how that kind of worked.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to cut it down real quick. Okay. So the Seekers of Enlightenment were basically Project Utopia / Team Tomorrow from Aberrant. They are the good X-Men Charles Xavier faction that wants to help you control your mutant powers, suppress them if you don't want them, and are secretly sterilizing you. Boom. Typhoon are the Aberrant faction from Aberrant. A bunch of miscreants and castouts and people too freaky to live in normal society and band together to live on their own.
Changeling. You're thinking Changeling.
Changeling is the Aberrants from Aberrant. Sorry. And they fill the exact same role as they did in Aberrant. Typhoon is all of the evil organizations in Aberrant. They don't really fit one or the other, but they're evil superheroes doing evil stuff. Hell, they could even basically be the Terrigen. The Terrigen in Aberrant are aberrants that think they're better than people because clearly they're better than people. They can control fire and stuff.
Yeah, they're a mob basically.
And Typhoon's Queen Bee and stuff seem to have reached of a superiority. I mean, she mind controlled people to do what she wants and stuff. So she's on top of the totem pole.
Wasn't she psychic, so she knew everything that was going on?
Exactly.
They never actually give you her powers.
I'm sure they show up in a future.
Yeah, they'll show up in the future. I think they just wanted her to be more powerful than year one powers give, so they just don't even include, because technically she's only supposed to show up right near the end almost.
Yeah.
So.
What are the other factions? We know that there's secret government.
First.
There's Humanity First, which is literally, I think in Aberrant you had Humanity First as a faction. Like, I think that's literally what they were called. No, they were called the Church of the Archangel Michael.
Jesus.
Because this was early White Wolf, and they love to drive home how much religion sucks. They loved that shit. So yeah, the Church of the the Church of the Archangel Michael and Humanity First, which is the most Klansman thing possible. They serve the same role in both games. They are evil, racist, straight-eared humans that just hate people that are different so much.
And yet they use the people who are different to do the...
Yeah. Year 2 and Year 3 introduce stuff for them to not have to use aberrants to be able to fight aberrants, like resistor suits, which are mechs, and gadgetry, which shows up in Year 2.
Oh, right. The Batman archetype.
Yeah. Batman. And is there another... Oh, there's the Secret Government Suicide Squad faction, which also exists in Aberrant. I just don't remember the name, but they showed up in Freak Expose or something. In both worlds, basically, the government kidnaps the mutants and turns the mutants into murder machines on their behalf.
Was there a faction like that?
It shows up in Year 2 a little bit more, but a lot of NPCs you see disappearing in Year 1 end up in that faction in Year 2.
Sense, yeah.
They just disappear, then they'll show up again with like masks screwed into their faces and like bomb collars and stuff.
Shit.
And mind controlled. So, that is the breakdown for Aberrant and Amp, which they've cross-pollinated so much that you have to know that the two ideas are related. And that's fine. We could really use a better Aberrant because Aberrant's kind of atrocious. I would have liked... I found the factions in Amp were weaker than the ones in Aberrant. And clearly villainous for the most part. Like, even Typhoon seems a little dickish.
Well, Typhoon's the mob, obviously.
Oh, sorry, Changeling.
Oh.
Changeling. I meant to say Changeling. Because Changeling has Dr. Murder Hands, who used his murder hands to murder his assistant and get away with it. And I don't think he feels that bad about it.
No.
What was his name again?
Dr. Murder Hands.
Like,
Scalpel.
Hands?
No,
Scalper?
Scalpel's a different dude. This was...
Scalpel was a different guy.
Claws, Rex, Reaver,
Basically,
Slashy, Nail.
every faction had at least one serial killer in it, it felt like.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can find that.
The Children of Enlightenment had their Charles Xavier isn't a mutant, except he totally is in Year 2.
Dr. Lightbulb.
Dr. Light, who also comes off a bit as Mohinder Suresh from Heroes, actually. He just seems to he kind of comes off as him, and that's cool.
Mohinder becomes a mutant in Heroes too. That's funny.
In one alternate timeline, he becomes a roach monster.
Yeah.
But he actually, does have mutations because Heroes was so poorly written.
Just like watch the first season. Don't
watch
any
the
of
first
other
season
ones.
of Heroes.
Sylar was amazing.
The writer's strike did it, bro.
Yeah.
Just like it fucked up the first few seasons of Next Generation.
It did. Yeah.
It did. They had to use Phase 2 scripts. Anyway.
Yeah, his name was Carver.
Carver!
The names, oh god.
Oh, man.
Alright, let's talk about the names. We gotta get the negatives out here now.
Sponge.
The names in AMP suck.
Right?
I'm just gonna come out and say it.
We're kind of terrible people about this.
And you know what's awful about us taking a shit on these names, Kevin?
Is that they're all from contributors and stuff like that?
Yeah, these are probably all beta test characters and con members and people who are doing first drafts who got their characters included in the book and are super happy that their characters are in the book. And we are taking a shit all over their names.
I'll be brutally honest, as someone who's terrible with names myself, I didn't mind them.
So,
no one asks the shit shoveler what art's like.
I'm just, I don't... I'm not good with names. I try to be creative on names, but I'm not great. So,
I think
kudos to the people who try with names, and I got nothing against it.
For all you...
Okay, the names that stick out for me are Sponge. Because that's a stupid name, especially for a female, to ever name yourself. That's dumb.
The bee guy. And
No, the
Dr.
bee guy.
Bees?
The bee guy I didn't mind. His name was Buzz. That's adorable.
I don't remember. There was someone whose name we constantly shit on, and then after we killed him, we just made a quip about what his name should have been and had a good laugh about
We
it.
did
Oh,
that
it
for
was,
every character.
Right?
I'll find it.
But yeah, I actually like the bee's guy's name. His name was Buzz. That was adorable. Whatever. Then there was
Critter?
Twitter's name is okay.
yeah, Critter's name is good.
Yeah, alright, Critter's good.
There is the guy, no, like Professor Coldheart or whatever is her name.
Oh, that woman who tried to seduce us. Using her
Yeah.
powers.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
what was her
yeah,
name?
no,
Jack
that's what I'm
Off?
trying to find.
Professor Handjob or something?
Hard Shell.
Hardshell.
And
And we're like, so she has armor or something? And then we're like, oh, she has like a cold heart. It's like, okay, like it's convoluted, but I can
Wait,
I can
was
understand.
Hardshell the empath?
Yeah.
Yeah, when he
'Cause
tried
she
to
had a
seduce
cold
Nod,
heart.
and he was like,
Yeah.
"Whoa, lady."
Whoa, lady, I'm 12.
Really? That was Hardshell? I thought Hardshell was like the Mack truck guy.
No, his name's
No.
Mac.
His name was Mac Truck.
I liked that.
Yeah,
Wait,
that's
he,
fine.
he worked.
Was his
he-
given Christian name Mack Truck?
No, it was
That's a superhero
Mac.
name.
Conroy. And then
Conroy, like convoy, like a Mack Jesus
Yeah.
fucking
But
Christ.
no, seriously, the one that also stands out for me is Dr. Scalpel Hands or whatever the hell.
Carver?
Yeah, he's like
That
no,
sounds
no,
like
no, no, no.
No,
Carver was the leader of Changeling,
Oh,
but
right.
Dr. Scalpel was
No,
the guy.
who's the guy that has monster hands?
No.
That's
That's
Carver.
Carver. Dr. Scalpel was the guy you fought.
No. You're talking about a third guy.
no.
There was Yes, because I've read the books. There's Dr. Scalpel, who we tried to murder.
Yes.
There's a doctor in Changeling that has monster hands. And
That's
then
Carver.
there's a third guy who's the canon ruler of Changeling, who has the rogue life-stealing power and killed his girlfriend.
No.
Either way,
Yes.
we're talking about Dr. Scalpel, who was the serial killer who kept killing people with scalpels.
His name was Dr.
And he got
Scalpel.
away, if I recall.
Yeah, I was like, are you fucking kidding me now, man? How do you expect to not get caught for being a serial killer? You could at least change your name to Dr. Feelgood or something.
Dr. Scalpel. Two
Right?
things telling you what his profession is.
The cock up of a.
What was that?
That was the
fucking
one that we
serial
didn't
killer?
even record.
The guy who can steal souls or whatever. That's Conduit.
Conduit is the
That's
leader
a-
of
that's a
Changeling.
Pretty good name.
Yeah.
But he has monster hands too, because he
No.
drains people's life. Like, they're not actually monsters, but he's a life stealer.
Yeah.
And he's the leader of Changeling.
Yeah.
And then there's Dr. Carver with his actual monster
No, not
hands.
Doctor. Well, I guess he is technically a doctor, but it's just Carver for his nickname.
But yeah,
then, yeah.
But
Dr.
Carver?
Scalpel.
Are we going to throw pumpkins at him?
but then there was the
He should have called himself
assassin,
Chet Monster
crazy
Hands.
person.
This is Blackadder or something.
Yeah, he had a name
Diamondback?
that,
Diamondback.
Diamondback.
yeah,
That's a
which
fine
made
name.
which made sense and it sounds
Yeah,
kind of cool.
he was just a
And
weird
he was a
character.
kid too.
It's one thing away. Diamondback is one thing away from a Batman assassin who uses snake poison, Copperhead.
Oh,
Yeah.
right, that guy who wears an actual snake costume. And looks
It
ridiculous.
was just
Depends.
interesting that they have a
A child sociopath archetype?
yeah.
We had one too.
Yeah, it's just he was really. I don't know.
I mean, people could have played the NPCs different than I played them too. Like it's, I'll admit, part of it's on me as DM
Ah.
for playing NPCs different ways, but that's my take on it. So that's how.
Yeah. It's just the names really stuck with
We just
us.
like beat up Sue Storm or whatever her name is, Susan
Critter?
Winters. We just like beat her up, robbed her car of her insulin essentially.
We drugged her a bunch too.
drugged her a bunch, tried to blow her up with nitroglycerin, and then just left.
Also, we murdered that guy in the trunk.
Yeah. Buzz.
Dr. Bees.
We're like, he's a serial killer. We're gonna kill him.
He did murder a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like 800 children in one go.
I think we would have murdered Unia because it's like we didn't really want. We were working working to subvert the group we were working for. Once we kind of found out that they were just looking to hire
Awful?
serial killers.
Yeah.
Right.
Except for the child we gave them.
Yeah, you guys.
Oh,
gave-
fireman!
What was his name? Let me find it.
That one where we
Nova.
punched
I
the
think it was
child.
Phoenix or something like that.
Nova or Phoenix.
Yeah.
His name's probably the name of the fucking adventure, the road trip kid.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to find it.
I think Phoenix was the name we suggested. Or maybe not.
Yeah, we suggested like 80 names for this kid.
At least I didn't tell you about the guy named Teflon.
Oh
What?
God, why?
There was a guy, one of the people you fought in the 5 Days of Asphalt, which was the one with the kid.
Road trip?
One of the guys in Road Trip, who you guys managed to avoid fighting, was Teflon.
What the fuck were his powers?
He's a bulk, and
You fry an egg on him?
Is
he
Watch
non-stick?
out! Watch out! I'm gonna use a metal spatula!
No, the
he has
seasoning.
bulletproof and blade-proof powers and
He could have called
punch-proof.
himself Kevlar. That's a better name.
I just picture him being that Denny's we hit in. He's just like staring through the.
Like we're saying, like the
cooking
kid's
stuff.
setting him on fire with his fire powers, and he's like touching all the eggs and they're cooking. He's like, "Look upon my works, ye mighty."
Let's go to the better Denny's.
Where's the kid?
It's not important
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah, Sponge
Fuck.
is the one that really stands out for me, though.
But then again, they were like 12, or I think they were younger than Nod, so it's understandable that
No,
she didn't.
she was like 13. I remember because we kept saying how he had
Yeah.
net gunned a 13-year-old girl.
Oh right.
And I think you guys expected me to care. I just had a net gun. I was happy that they existed.
I love how you asked if you could have one, and they're like, oh yeah, and you're like, holy shit, those are real? I thought that was made up. I thought it was a cartoon thing.
Grappling.
Yeah, and then I shot someone with it, or I shot into a window, and it never worked after that.
I think they took it away from you after.
That makes sense. That's a good move.
Um,
All right,
They took all their shit away after.
moving away from the names of the NPCs that were Kickstarter backers.
Powers. Maybe we should talk about powers.
Yeah, powers are probably the next sticking point.
Super OP.
They,
But not for the reasons you'd think, listeners.
a lot of the ones that were really, really easy to manipulate and do shit with were either undefined to the point where you could just do anything with them. And
Yeah.
They were, like,
yeah, like your powers, for example, were
My elemental powers, where I
I
can...
was going to start with Kevin. Sorry.
Oh.
Oh, no.
Oniromancy.
Yeah, Neuromancy's not defined
you
at all.
had, you know, what did you get? You got Dreamwalk, Dream Object, Dreamscape.
Dreamscape was the major one. That was
Yeah.
just...
What are the limits to it? What can and can't it
It-
do?
Basically,
And even as he's activating it, he can do damage with it. Like, it takes a certain time to activate all the way, but even as it's activating, he can still do a bunch of fucking damage.
yeah,
And
that's
what does it create? What are its upper limits?
It's like illusion. Illusion is another one where if you activate enough illusions, you create this world that says in it, people are at your mercy. So it's like,
A
what's
world
the
of
limit?
Your imagination.
There is no limit, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. Like, how is that even going to be dealt with in 2 and 3, where these guys are getting more fucking powerful?
It says this changes the environment, making it anything you want. The entire area doesn't change all at once. It's 11 minus your Neuromancy skill minutes to change it, which was 3 minutes or 4 minutes, I think, for Kevin.
Yeah.
However, during this period, the amp can still make quick enough changes to attack others, such as creating a river of lava beneath their feet.
What does that mean?
That means you just kill them instantly, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
There's environmental damage stuff, but yeah,
Yeah.
I could murder anyone. I could
Turn
take
everything to lava.
or take the air away.
Turn
or just
everything into
anything.
hydrochloric acid. Chlorine
Like-
gas.
Once complete, Dreamscape lasts for the whole scene, or until the amp is killed or knocked out, or just chooses to end it. They can inflict.
You can choose to end it? The entire game, we're like, oh, he can't turn it off. Fuck, we're gonna have to knock him out, or like, just leave. This is just gonna be here.
It was the ultimate high chloroform.
And if successful in creating it, they basically do Oniromancy divided by 2 damage, like almost every turn.
Yep.
Which, again, your Oniromancy was like 8, so you're doing 4 damage every turn, and characters have what, like 10 health?
Or something like that, yeah.
So
And again,
And that was just like the dream powers that most people wouldn't even look at because they're like lame.
and that's just
Like,
the damage
Kevin also,
aspect.
you have a knack for doing that. You'll pick like a power that like no one even cares about, and you'll be like, "This is my power," and everyone's like, "Oh, okay, that's kind of weird or whatever," and you're like, "I can kill all of you."
Dancing.
Yeah, it's like,
Performance, dodge, and a martial art nobody cares about.
I'm like what the fuck, Kevin? Then there was this dude's powers.
I had turned water to wine, and apparently they let me create nitroglycerin.
yeah.
Anything.
Water into anything.
Yeah, there's no
Water
limit.
to wine. Change the makeup of water in any way they wish. Changing the water to wine is most famous, but they can purify salt water or whatever, or they can turn water into poison that deals 3 bleeding damage if ingested. But like that's just like.
But it says I can turn into anything, right?
Yeah.
You kind of glossed over the middle part.
Exactly. That's what I mean. Is like they go into detail about things that
no one would ever use once they had anything that exists.
Yeah. And you're like
water to chlorine gas.
Wealth is pointless when you can just make LSD out of water.
I would really like Eloy to weigh in on this if there's a part of the book we missed. With the caveat that nobody will take the GM is supposed to rein it in, because that is not valid.
Yeah.
If the GM is supposed to rein in these powers need to be written differently.
Because then they have to argue if the player chose it, and that's
right.
Just...
It's like, hey, I want to make LSD. It's like, how do you know? I've ingested LSD, or I'm an LSD scientist, or like,
that's what
they cannot be arbitrary like this.
I was actually mentioning that to Nicole while we were driving here because I thought that the power said
that you had to know it. No, I made that up. That was a limit I put onto the character to try and rein in water to wine.
Still, that as you say, like once you guys like, okay, here's the first step you do. Let's say you've never drank anything before in your life. You go and you take a shot at tequila. Now you can make tequila.
Now you give a mouse a cookie.
Exactly. You then have a barrel of tequila. You give to the mob and say, "What will you give me for this barrel of tequila?"
I would like a handful of blotters of LSD. That's it.
Yeah.
All right, here's a barrel of LSD. I want better LSD now.
Yeah.
Like a little thimble of really good LSD.
Yeah, like you just... Exactly, the give them out a cookie kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
just go into a liquor store and buy everything.
Buy one thing in the liquor store to get trade for money to buy everything else in the liquor store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the infinite escalation and...
Yeah. Any of the creation powers are just insane. Like...
Aberrant solved this quite nicely because, as we all know, as I know, because this is something I've always known about Aberrant, you can't create anything with Aberrant. The powers in Aberrant are only good for murder. Like, you can't create water or turn water into something else in Aberrant. Nothing that lasts.
Yeah.
Which
was a weapon.
Yeah, which was a problem I was trying to make this character in Aberrant.
Where it says the Oneiromancy stuff fades or, like, disappears... This doesn't say that things change back, which is the whole issue. Like, if the water to wine changed back, then it would be not... Like, it would still be OP, because, you know, you could still nitroglycerin and whatever you want at the time.
Yeah, you're not doing that explosion.
But the whole selling whatever you want couldn't be an option. Or you could, but it wouldn't work twice, because people would be onto you.
There are two options here. One, these powers are as open-ended as they have been presented as, which means this game is a high-powered on the same level as Exalted scale of game.
Yeah.
Because once you have the person who figures out Oneiromancy or water to wine, and I bet you there are others we didn't see.
Water to wine is like a level... Again, you guys made level 1 characters. Now, maybe we somehow screwed up between the 4 of us.
We really did.
Characters.
It's really straightforward.
So then, as far as we know... The water to wine, all you need is the ability to walk on water, which is a level 1 ability. So it's a level 2, like on the skill tree, water to wine is the second thing you can pick, which is, at a level 1 character, you have to at least be able to pick one second thing. If you can't pick, if you can only pick 2 things on the skill tree, which you guys can pick more from at level 1, but like if you could only pick 2, which is a very low limitation, you could still do water to wine, and you could still become OP instantly.
Yeah, I'm still creating chlorine gas.
It's
Vimy Ridge all over again.
Yeah, it's the same with Dreamscape. It's fairly low on the chart.
So yeah, the power scales, because they are unchecked, this game is over-exalted levels of insanity. Like, I don't understand how the metaplot can even hold up to any elemental creates a gallon of nitroglycerin in a barrel and Donkey Kongs it at any single gathering of these NPCs. Not everyone is going to survive a nitroglycerin explosion.
Look out, Mr. President.
Exactly. Like, even... okay, so there's one aspect. So either this is just broken by how it's been left to describe, or the second option I see is that somewhere in the book, and the book is fairly short, we missed something that reins these powers in. All right?
That's possible.
And I really need Eloy to comment on this. Like, if there's a line somewhere that says, amps are only able to create simple substances, or any amp power ever created. Maybe there's a guideline for creating rules that we missed, where it's like, no matter what, amp abilities fade after an hour. You can never keep stuff around longer than a minute. The energies just don't hold up. If that's the case, it needs to be more prevalent, because all 4 of us missed it on multiple read-throughs trying to make sure we weren't breaking the game with water to wine.
Yeah.
Like the simplest thing.
On a side note about powers, I've always found teleportation powers interesting in the regards of, if you have like Dr. Doors, who his power is you basically like open a door and it goes to somewhere new. Now, I don't know if he physically needs to open the door and then it becomes somewhere new, or if it's just a doorway and it becomes somewhere new. Because if it's just a doorway and it becomes somewhere new, what if someone's standing halfway in that doorway? Do they get cut in half? Because I believe there's also a power where he can just make it appear in air anywhere, because I think I was the one who limited him to it has to be in a doorway.
I'd assume if he opened a portal, it would either move a little bit, or that person would get pushed by like the explosion of it happening.
I guess, but I've never, you know,
They don't address it.
yeah, like it, and a lot of other games and a lot of other things, like this is actually something I've thought about way before even Amp. Like, people who have the power to create just a portal, does it just slice people in half? Like, if you just, or does it push them away? Or, as you say, does it move the portal? Does it move the person?
Yeah, does it give it a little
Things
buffer
like
thing?
that. Like,
Because
little,
we know in Stargate, it fucking cuts people in half.
yeah, so things like that,
You
which
die.
add that little bit of depth to the power.
In Amp's defense, it is a rules light game. I don't know if it's
It is,
billed as such, but it is extremely easy breezy.
Oh, and it's
Mechanics-
nice that way.
Yeah,
Even
mechanics
my-
barely came up.
Yeah, and like my character, the strength powers don't really seem worth it compared to all these other people's powers. It's like,
Barrel
I-
nitro.
it's like, oh yay, I'm a little bit stronger than a normal person. Like, it did not seem like I could hold up against any supervillains. The speed though, I was going like at first level, I was going so fast people couldn't see me. I was going so fast I could run on water, run up buildings, or chloroform 100 children in less than a minute. Like,
It seems like great care was given to the combat basic abilities like endurance, power, strength, laser blast.
yeah, those all seem
But-
pretty balanced with each other, and then you
but-
have the other ones.
Yeah,
utility stuff. Is
exactly.
Really cool.
The wizard powers got added because all the fighter stuff, it's just like in D&D. The fighter stuff is very linear and balanced against his stealth, but the wizard stuff is quadratic. It exponentially increases in power as soon as you start taking it.
Create water at exceedingly bigger amounts.
Create
Yeah.
water out of anything.
Yeah, and that's the thing with your powers too. You not only had water to one, you could then create water.
Well, yeah,
So
had
you could
create
miss
mist.
that step too.
So you didn't even need water.
On hand, yeah.
You just created mist, and then you watered to wine the mist, because mist is water. Now maybe
Yeah.
as a DM I should have been like, mist isn't water, but then again that's
Like, it
that's
totally
the
is
DM
though.
Mist is
bringing
water,
in
yeah.
like that
It should
shouldn't
say
be
that.
necessary,
It should
yeah.
just say it in the power if it's intentional or not.
Yeah.
It should just let us know. And I think the water power specifically could just be fixed by saying water to wine. The very first buy of it, of water to wine, is all like, you can do simple liquids or whatever. And you're like, what would you define as simple liquids? It's like stuff you could, and you'd find some sort of gate for it, because stuff you could buy at a store and stuff under the sink, you could make some pretty fucking crazy shit with stuff you find under the sink.
Yeah.
Saying any simple element gets even weirder because elements are weird. But what drew me to the power system was it had all these it had this augment system on it. So you had water wine as a power, and then you could just had little augments that treat off of it that made water wine more complex, and then you could work up to nitroglycerin guy. But it doesn't matter if we fix water to wine with any of that. The entire power system's paradigm looks like it needs an overhaul. Like the vision or the vision or the design philosophy behind Amp's powers need to get a second look at, because for a group of people who spend a lot of time, analyzing stuff, making sure that we're reading the rules right, making sure we're doing it rules as intended, it seems really intended that you do whatever the fuck you want with some of these more abstract powers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it makes it so that, like, I was like, I'm going to build, like, standard superhero type character. I'm going
A
to be
brick.
strong and fast. That's simple. And you guys are like, I'm going to pick weird powers. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. I'm probably going to, have to carry the fighting. No. Not
My
at
death
all.
toll was the
my,
highest.
my biggest thing that I did in games, besides farming all those kids once again, was putting you guys where you needed to go so you guys could deal with the problem.
Throw me at them.
Right?
Fire me, boy.
Like, that was the biggest thing I did, and I helped NPCs escape.
Yeah. I had a thing for that. I had a thing to follow that up, but yeah, you're right. Our characters are. I think the reason Oniromancy and Water were written the way they were was to save word count. Because you want Oniromancy to do weird shit, right? But you don't want to spend 3 times that you spent on, say, super strength, writing up the specific guidelines for Oniromancy.
Yeah, and they did have they obviously did try to put some reins on Dreamscape and stuff like that, but there were augments that just made it you can only pull dreams from people who are asleep. It's like, no, I can just use it while they're awake. You can only be touching them. No, now I can do it from distance. So it's
even the character creation is designed in such a way to rein in your choices. And I felt character creation rules were really, really limiting for what kind of character you can make.
Interesting that, though, I was saying, again, to Nicole on our way here, we were brainstorming, kind of getting ourselves ready for this session.
Kind of trying to remember everything, because it's been a while.
Yeah. And we were saying, because in character creation, it kind of wants you to have 3 powers. Once you have a main power,
primary, secondary, and tertiary.
And with the powers decreasing in strength as you get them. But
it punishes you for doing so. It
punishes you greatly doing so, because, you're given, for lack of better words, I don't remember how many it was, but let's say 10 points of experience you can put into powers.
Oh yeah, there were 10 points, because I put all 10 into water.
And exactly, and you could have put, as Devin said, all 10 points into water, and then make the most powerful water character, or the most strongest amp or something. But the game kind of wanted you to go, no, let's put 4 into water, and then the other 6 into the other things, or 3. And it's like, why would I do that when I can be the best at this?
It gets worse, actually, just because I wanted to bring that up. So you have your primary, which you can have an unlimited amount of points in. So I went elemental, and I just cranked up the fuck out of water. Mm-hmm. And then you have your secondary, which I think can only go up to 50% power, and then your tertiary, which can only go up to 20% power.
I think it was.
It doesn't matter. It's not important. So I built my character, and I wanted him to have a bunch of stuff. Alan Smithy was supposed to be a very different character once the mutation rules were out. He was supposed to become a character we called the Serpent of Eden, which was this mutant water dragon hydra thing that had moray eel heads. Right? So I'm like, okay, I want to build this guy, but the mutation rules aren't out, so what powers do I think I'd want this character to have? And then I'm like, oh, well, I only have 50% power to any other power in my secondary, so I guess no matter what, because I want him to be a water god, I better max out water, even though I didn't really want water. Because I want to be able to crawl on walls or have bendy bones and stuff like elasticity gave you. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess my 50%, my secondary power better be whatever the ones are for endurance or regenerating or something.
Mutation or whatever. Yeah.
And then your tertiary is even weaker. I'm like, oh, I guess that's where bendy bones will go. But here's the kicker. I wanted to build this really unique character, and I'm waiting for the mutation stuff in year 3. He wasn't going to mutate till year 3. But because all of the powers aren't out yet for year 2 and year 3, I was afraid of giving him more than 1 power at 10, because if you choose your secondary power, it's locked in. If you choose your tertiary, it's locked in. So I didn't want to ruin my build before I knew what was coming in year 2 and year 3.
Also...
So... Just to link this back to being the legitimate player who wants to play through the game, I legitimately wanted to wait and build my character the way all these different options would show up in the later years. And because the books aren't physically out yet, decision paralysis set in, so I just built a guy who had 10 water.
Yeah, it rewards you for specializing.
Yeah, it does. Because it specifically rewards you for specializing, because not only can your tertiary and secondary powers not go as high as your primary, which makes some sense, I guess.
Yeah.
But it also costs more and more XP. Your primary powers cost 1 XP to upgrade, your secondary powers cost 2 XP, and your tertiary was 3. Now, I'm obviously getting
4.
The numbers.
It was exponentially more difficult.
I'm obviously getting the numbers wrong, but it costs more to upgrade the powers that were shittier.
Yeah.
And it should have been the opposite.
Yeah, exactly. I think the game would have... If you had just said it costs 3 to upgrade your primary, 2, and then 1 for your tertiary, or
Make it
whatever.
harder to upgrade your primary
Yeah.
because your primary has no upper limit.
exactly.
And plus, also, you need to upgrade that in order to be able to upgrade the other.
Oh
ones.
yeah, your primary has to be super high to upgrade your secondary and your tertiary.
Yeah, your primary
It's a step
always
ladder.
needs to be above your, which would make it even more prevalent to make it more expensive. Because if you make your primary more expensive, then it's like, okay,
It acts
once
like
a gateway.
it acts like the blood power score from Vampire, where you can't make your powers go a certain level unless your power stats up.
Yeah.
It feels like a better idea just to, once you get your primary power up, just invest everything in your skills because it's
Yeah.
a better use of your
I mean,
points.
Yeah, or
Oh yeah,
once you
then
max out your primary, max out your skills a bunch, and then go into secondary and tertiary. But
XP. I never spent it in the 7 sessions we played, listeners. I never spent 1 experience point.
because you were already the best.
Well, 1, everything's fucking expensive for what we get out. Like we
Oh,
went
yeah.
through standard.
And I
We
gave
went
you
at the
guys-
higher end of
Yeah, I
XP
gave you
give out.
guys a fairly high amount of XP, I thought.
And I never spent XP once. And 2, again, I was terrified to spend XP on stuff until the new books came out to let me know what powers I wanted to do so I didn't ruin my character build, because I had a vision for what I wanted my character to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the meta plottiness of it and the promise of more, and without having cliff notes early on, how it all locks you into your build, it all stopped me from ever advancing my character. So I went through 7 sessions, and we steamrolled through a good chunk of those adventures with a
Oh, yeah.
level 1 character who just could make nitroglycerin and LSD.
It also makes me
Oh.
wonder how you're gonna because in year 2 and up, they're gonna have powers, but you can't specialize in those.
Yeah,
because-
what happens to characters who start in year 1? Do they not get to get the benefit of your 3, 4, and 5 powers? If they're suckers and a character creation made a primary, secondary, and tertiary?
Yeah, like do they have to just save up their points for?
Do they have to build a new character? Does the GM have to deign to allow them to do a retcon of their build?
Though I wonder if there's like some meta plotty thing where it's like, oh, some weird flux happened and your powers mutated. So
I know that in year 3, you can actually get mutation points in the very same way in Aberrant you can gain Taint, to taint the node you had in your head, to pick up extra powers. I know that exists, to pick up like a fourth, like a fortiary or whatever, but it's not out yet.
Quatriary?
A quatriary, yeah. But it's not out yet. And if you follow
Can you look up that word for me?
if you follow the power scheme of primary, secondary, tertiary, a 4th power would be even harder to raise.
Right?
So even if you had all these cool new powers, like in Amp Year 3, there's a power to make you a Ghost Rider. Like you control a car and it catches on fire and it's like a living thing connected to you, right? Well, you're only going to get like out of 10, you're going to get like power level 2 or 3 out of it tops.
Right?
So the game punishes you from playing early.
Sorry. Primary, secondary, tertiary, quatriary,
Quintiary?
quiniary, seniary,
Okay, we're
septenary, octonary, nonanary,
decanary.
denary.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is the problem with how the character creation and the advancement system are built. I was utterly uninterested in leveling up my character because I was waiting for a supplement to come out, because I didn't want to, because we expected this game to go into year 2 and stuff before we decided to take a break and Ian went back to school.
Yeah.
But I was utterly uninterested in advancing my character. I never had a moment where I needed to advance my character because of how the powers are written, and I think that's a big red flag.
Mm-hmm. It also doesn't help that, like, a lot of other characters probably wouldn't come across that type of problem because they wouldn't think outside the box like that. Like being like, oh, watered wine, that's cool. I can make alcohol. Oh, I can make LSD. Oh, I can make nitroglycerin and explode everything.
Chlorine
Like,
gas.
right? Like, not everyone would think of that, but the rules allow it. So,
Yeah. And I mean, not everyone would think of it, but once you think of it,
It's a
which
genie.
eventually you will think of, like, well, what if I do this? What if I, once you get creative enough with it, as you say, you've now opened the floodgates.
Yeah, the genie's out of the bottle.
Yeah, there's no
Now-
going back.
A competent way to deal with that, like a way that should be done. If I imagine Amp will, after year 5 comes out and it's all done, we'll get a revised edition, maybe an edition that even collates all of the rules into one book. I could see that happening in the future, and I look forward to that. But
Again, we really would like this to
Oh!
continue, but it is as
Amp is a buy
Devin
for
said.
us.
Yeah, as Devin said, though, it is unfortunately a screaming child that needs to be fed, and in order for people to feed it, you need to like it. And we like it, but...
Well, that's why we're doing this podcast. We're going to air out the problems we have and also talk about what we like, but, Anyway, like I was saying, AMP is a buy, but a good game would preempt these questions, like, can I make nitroglycerin? Does Oneiromancy let me make everything? Do powers fade over time? It would preempt it by saying, yes, you can do this, here's how difficult it is. So players who would never think of it, do think of it. Yeah. And players who do think of it have rules to go by.
Sorry, with the Oneiromancy, it specifically says you can make a river of lava under their feet.
Right?
It also supposed to be your dreams, but it's like, who are they to say what my dreams are?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
You're a reality alterer.
If you can
You're
make
an
a river
Oneiromancer.
of lava under their feet, and it's only, according to the game, it's only supposed to do Oneiromancy divided by 2 damage every turn.
Yeah, because it's probably not real lava.
Yeah,
it's energy lava.
Sense.
Dream lava.
Which makes sense, but if your Oneiromancy is 8, then you're doing 4 damage to them every turn.
And the rules incentivize you to max out 1 power.
Yeah, and if you're doing... And again, the characters have... I don't think any of you had more than 12 health. I will double check on that.
Yeah, I don't remember.
But I really don't... So, in 3 turns, not to mention the psychological trauma of being in a freaking river of lava.
Right?
So...
Yeah, most non-amps would probably just die on the spot.
Also, you have to remember that if you're trying to limit it by, say, dreams, an Oneiromancer, even by dint of the word and dint of Oneiromancer in popular fiction, are lucid dreamers.
Yeah.
That's what they are, culturally speaking, so they can make their own dreams.
We are the makers and the dreamers.
Yes, Gene Wilder right there. So...
I think integrity was health?
It's like integrity plus endurance or something, or whatever, and that gives you your base health or some nonsense.
Yeah, Nicole was Wrath with, I think, the highest health. Because
mine was so low.
Yeah, and I think yours was 13. So again, in 3
That's 3 turns. You've killed someone.
You're dead. And you had 10 health, and then Nod, because he was a child, I think he had slightly less. Nod had 8 health. So in 2 turns, Nod kills himself, basically, or it kills another child. And then, because you guys were amps, you actually had more health. Like, I think the standard human had, 6 or something.
Yeah.
So, in a turn and a half...
characters just kill everything. Yeah. And if that's supposed to be the power difference between amps and humans, that's fine.
But that's not what the setting puts into place. Yeah. Year 1 for AMP paints a picture of people not knowing superheroes exist and it being like a shadow kind of thing that slowly builds up until year 2 happens, and by year 2 people are like, amps exist. We understand that mutants are among us.
Yeah, but then they have that episode where the bees kill everyone, and it's like...
And it takes place in modern times. I have fucking cell phones.
Yeah.
I have Instagram.
Yeah, that feels like the major divide is it takes place in modern times. Most superhero games take place in the 80s or the 90s, where those things
or just a time that isn't.
But just anyone with a smartphone at this point could be click.
Well, that's what the whole Battle of Reno thing was supposed to be, is when there actually, is enough amps out in the wild. I say in the wild, but out in the real world doing something, and people start taking pictures in cell phones, and that's how the Battle of Reno gets out.
Yeah.
And before that, it was supposed to be all of you guys were trying to hide and not knowing
America's
what was going
huge.
wrong.
So you could easily lose a few, chupacabras or alien encounters or weird shit in America. Yeah. It's enormous.
Yeah, and people would be like, that's an edit.
Exactly.
Yeah, but then the Battle of Reno happens, and then it's out there, kind of
Or
thing.
the American DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency, it's 85,000 tons of liquid LSD are being transported in our borders. And it's the purest shit ever. Every single batch is identically pure. What the fuck?
Yeah, none of our characters were very subtle. My character walked around in sunglasses and pajamas to hide his horrible mutations. Your character just went to bars and sold massive gallons of...
I made it in a tub!
And your character went into a dark room in an office and sat there for 8 hours every day.
Sat there and drank.
Right? You saw me go to a building.
Also, she was ripped. It's
yeah.
So yeah, there are disconnects between the mechanics, the intended effects of the mechanics, because the intended effects are not supposed to be this high scale, and it's supposed to encourage spreading out your abilities, but they do not incentivize that. And it's a disconnect between the meta plot, which is supposed to be a very low-powered game, it looks like, until it starts to ramp up, but it's not a low-powered game because the abilities let you make nitroglycerin. out of air, out of the water in people's eyeballs. There's a lot of thematic issues that we encountered. And I swear to Christ, if there's just like a thing in the book we missed, I would be embarrassed, but I would also be a little sad that it was that easy to miss.
Yeah.
Like if there was a disclaimer or a
water
note
wine,
somewhere.
like the water in your cup turns to this. That simplistic of a rule, like you could still turn the water in your cup to nitroglycerin, but you couldn't.
That's a lot of nitroglycerin.
Yeah, but you couldn't it becomes less widespread and less.
Or even
OP
just
as-
making the difficulty higher. You have to roll a
Yeah.
higher roll for more complex substances, and they give you a guideline, and you're supposed to let the DM figure it out.
Yeah.
That's great, because you'll always get the guy like, what was that fucking guy's name that we hated?
Which one?
We're us, Devin.
I know, right? He always wanted to play a glow cloud in Star Trek.
Brian.
Yeah. You'll always get players like him that'll take an inch and turn it into a mile as far as examples go. So if it's, say, hyper complex to make gold, he'll be like, all right, I won't make gold. How hard would it be to make aluminum? And it's like, why do you want to make aluminum? It's not that complicated. It's like, because aluminum sells at the same price point on the metals market. And you're like,
That's a really good idea.
You'll get people like that try to push it and find ways around, but giving guidelines would have been a better idea than just saying, level 2 power, do what you will with the whole cloth of the law.
Yeah.
Also, as your water powers went up, you could just do it with more and
more.
Eventually, the whole of Lake
Yeah, what was
Erie
it? It
is
was like-
nitroglycerin, is LSD, the entire
It was
lake.
water times 10 liters or something is what you could affect.
Stupidly high. It was amazing.
At that point, you're basically Captain Planet. You just purify everything.
Oh, and yeah, there are amp powers called augers or whatever. Like they're powers that let you augment other amp powers, like a battery booster.
Oh, right.
And I think there's some of them that if you take them in a specific way, they like increase the potency by like a factor. So it could have been like instead of 100 liters, it's 10,000 liters every second, as long as I'm in Lake Erie here.
All the oceans are clean.
Of LSD.
Now they're blood.
All the fish are dying, frothing at the mouth. You ruined our planet.
I think
Did
you
I?
mean
Or
made
did I
it
mean-
better.
I think you mean I fixed my island Earth that I live on.
Yeah, because you would become a god because no one could drink without you.
You'd all
LSD
die, and
back
it'd just
in
be
water.
one dude walking around being high all the time, and all the lakes are made of rainbow LSD.
Magic song playing.
Yeah, Magic Man.
Yeah, no, and I mean, you guys didn't even look into there was technology powers which allowed you to control.
We didn't even try to optimize. We
I
just
know.
took straight powers for 2 or 3 of the characters, and one person built a combat character.
And the shadow powers where you literally just can walk along the shadow and then kill. That's how there's a assassin character in the books. That,
My first aberrant character was a Shadowmancer. He was a dude that controlled shadow powers as an aberrant. I didn't want to revisit that.
Yeah. No, there's some neat powers in the game. They just need to be explained better.
And I mean,
Thematically brought together as a whole to tell us what amp powers are supposed to be. Because what are amp powers? In aberrant, you're manipulating quantum energy. You're doing Planck scaling and stuff. So that's why you never make anything that lasts, and everything has a short duration, and it's usually destruction or rewriting people's minds, but even that's a little hard. Because in Aberrant you have, it's part of a trilogy, it's the middle part, and in the future you get psychic-based mutants called scions. And they're much better at controlling a different level of quantum reality mechanics that isn't as brutal, that lets you create objects and let you manipulate people subtly and stuff. And it's not less powerful, it's just different. Novas or aberrants are like a brute force destroying whatever they want with the power of their mind. Syads are much more delicate and have much finer control. What the fuck are amps? Are they mutants?
They
I mean,
are.
the backstory is that it's superhero serum projects, and that's what
Yeah.
each one of the amp types is.
right, yeah.
Yeah,
A
it was
superhero
different
serum.
serum that basically.
But what did that serum
Right.
unlock? Because even if you want to take this at face value for speculative fiction, there's no serum that lets you control water.
Yeah.
There's no serum that makes you psychic. There's no serum that makes you a reality alterer. Where does amp power come from? Is it an alien concept? Is it nanomachines we're not aware of and that's what's doing all this stuff? Is it actually magic? I think amp powers are just. I think they exist to emulate superheroes in fiction, so people can play a superhero game. And I think they would benefit greatly from having a thematic origin for all of them, because amps come from the same place. They come from that project, MK Ultra.
The one project basically had
Not MK Ultra.
basically had a bunch of survivors
Yeah.
that went out and bred.
Yeah.
And the ants are their offspring.
And then a secret
I think-
Illuminati's been sterilizing them this whole time.
yeah.
It could be like a reveal later on that it's like, oh, this
It
is
could.
what it is.
Yeah,
But-
like for me right now, it's like, okay, so this is obviously not. Like, I don't see how it could really be nanites. That'd be weird. It's like, okay, so what? Did they find a fucking psychic alien race and gene modified humans with it? Is that why we start mutating because it's the alien DNA taking over? That would make sense. I mean,
sorry. The Josh Trank / Max Landis found footage movie Chronicle does this very well, actually. In Chronicle, you have 3 teens that get superpowers, right? And their superpowers fall under a theme. Psychic. Telekinesis. They can levitate, they can fly, they can pull, they can crush. They have all the basic Akira psychic powers. And they get it from, I think, finding an alien ship out in a field that crashed, Superman style, that just gives them this power. It's simple, it's straightforward, and you can elaborate on, and you know what to expect, and you can generate abstractions for later of what powers they could get. But the ant powers are just a shotgun of stuff that's in superhero fiction.
Yeah. The fact that it's a injection, as you say, I get it for the bulks. I get it for even like the blasters where it's like, okay, you heat up your hand enough and
Sure.
the molecules in your hand warm up and they shoot a fireball.
Mind
I get
controllers, sure. Psychic powers.
Yes.
They had that. Men That Stare at Goats in MK Ultra was a
Yeah.
clairvoyance project.
Yeah. Why not?
That actually was a project that the American government invested in. Whatever.
But yeah, so those kind of things. But like the whole just floating and like telekinesis, that
Psychic powers. Okay,
Yeah.
sure. Psychic powers. Creating something from nothing.
that goes a little bit.
Manipulating water. Like being a fire. Fire isn't an element that you can control. Fire is an energy reaction.
Yeah.
It's a state of energy. How do you control that?
yeah, I think if
Earth but not metal, metal but not earth?
it was like basically the same, except for you couldn't create things from nothing.
Like Aberrant did.
Transmutation makes sense. Illusions make sense. Even illusions that can hurt people because you can,
You mentally
go
do
around it being with like you didn't actually physically hurt them, but their brain thought you did, so it got hurt.
The mind
whole-
makes
the
it
whole
real.
matrix,
Yeah, or whatever, right? That would be fine. And yeah, the whole thing where like so it was an alien thing or whatever. They gene modified different things. The bulks are like they took like the physical aspects of it, or like the psychic abilities of these aliens or whatever.
The animal control is animal splicing.
Yeah, see,
Yeah,
that would all
pheromones
make
and shit.
a lot of
Yeah,
sense.
why not?
But even if they reveal more of this in later books, I think it keeps coming back to AMP Year 1 would have benefited greatly from an extra chapter detailing what the future has in store
Like
for
a-
GMs and players to
Yeah.
kind of give them a very brief crash course in what you can expect from the lineage of the game.
Yeah.
And Orpheus did that. Orpheus actually included that. They gave you a very general idea of what to expect in the very next book. But I think AMP would have benefited from a kind of overview of everything to expect. Like, certain NPCs are going to be important later on. If you want to run that meta plot, don't kill any of the following NPCs, and then just give a list. The power sources are kind of based on this, but don't give a very definite explanation, but just explain,
Yeah, just a
use that justification when you're educating rules.
Yeah.
This technology is going to be available. These types of character options are going to come up, including, maybe these rules are going to show up. So build your character how you want now, and don't worry about it because you'll get a chance to do a revision when those rules come out by nature of a plot in the game.
Yeah.
All that makes sense. Like the Eclipse from Heroes.
Yeah.
You want me to pause?
Yeah.
Sure.
Thanks.
We're back. What were we just talking about?
Kevin was about to say something.
I forget.
Yeah, well, that's what I was trying to say. What were we just talking about?
We were just talking.
Giving us a glimpse into the
Yeah.
future, so we can better make rule educations and setting calls.
Yeah.
Does that jog your memory at all, Kevin? Damn it!
Oh,
Sorry.
I think that's the bulk of our problems, right?
yeah.
I think so.
All right. Well, what did we like about AMP? Because we liked it. We all have
Yeah.
positive
Yeah.
things to say about it. Well, what are they specifically?
The powers were fun, even if they weren't
Balanced.
balanced.
Yeah.
There was a wide variety of them, which was really nice.
Yeah, you could build a bunch of superhero archetypes in this system.
As I say, you guys only just touched the surface.
Yeah, we
Like
used
among-
4 powers tops.
Yeah, among the elementals, You have air, earth, fire, metal, plants, water. You guys did one of the 5 or 6 powers.
Well, given there were only 3 players and trying to diversify is a bad idea in this.
Fair enough. So, no, the powers are... There's a lot of neat powers. A lot of... options. And as you say, the whole power skill tree thing, where like different routes on the powers and different... That's neat. A lot of fun.
They remind me of the augment system from Final Fantasy Tactics. No.
Yeah.
Yes. Maybe. Yeah. We'll say yeah.
And I was just going to say, that's neat. I like the whole, if you go down this route, this is where it takes you. But you kind of miss out on this route. But if you really want to specialize, you can take both routes. And, yeah.
Or the like trait systems like the one I had where, you buy certain quirks for your character and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oh, like Merits and
That
Flaws
was
and
a
stuff.
lot of...
Yeah, I always like games that have that. A lot of other people don't, but basically looking through the kinds of flaws and merits you can take helps me come up with more ideas. It helps me flesh out my character more.
Definitely, I agree. And as someone who came into AMP, before I DM'd AMP, I didn't have a ton of DMing experience. And as a DM, and as someone who, even before, Exalted, I didn't have a whole lot of role-playing experience. So the merits and flaws, those kind of systems, as you say, it really helps a person shape their character. Like, you have an idea in your mind, okay, I'm a superhero. Well, what's my superhero like? Okay, well, they're, brown hair, green eyes. Okay, well, but what are they like mentally? Okay, well, they're afraid of heights. Okay, well, I'm going to take the flaw, afraid of heights.
I'm not going to make them a flyer.
Okay, yeah, exactly. I'm not going to make them a flyer. Okay, well, then if I'm going to take a flaw, I should take something good. Maybe they're not afraid of heights, but maybe they're... or maybe they are afraid of heights, but they're not scared of the dark. So I'm going to take the bonus not scared of the dark or something so you can see in the dark a little bit better. Like, that kind of thing really helps flesh out a character and give you something, especially as someone newer to the gaming industry, or the
hobby.
Tabletop industry, tabletop hobby, tabletop whatever you want to call it. It gives them that much more of a stake into it, and they can start to feel like they know what they're doing quicker, and it comes more naturally to them.
I think it encourages players to give their characters flaws.
That too, yes.
Like personality flaws or just...
Yeah, and it also, because it has a system where it gives you bonuses for that.
Exactly.
Not only will it encourage you to do it, but also it encourages you to think about your character like that.
Exactly.
So I'm sure everyone's kind of played a game with a person who's like, okay, my character is basically my Mary Sue avatar.
Yeah, and that kind of loops back to, as I was saying, coming in as a first player on the market sort of thing. You're used to these games where, you play a video game and you can be the best at everything. More or less. But when you're role-playing, it's not so fun to play, oh, I'm just great at everything, and everything I personally know my character knows.
The generalist.
Yeah. You can't... You have to be able to break... Okay, I personally know that if I go into this closet, I'm going to die. But does my character know that? And would my character go into that closet? Well, yes, he would. And then you have to tell yourself, okay, I'm going to lose this character, but because you're playing the game and you want to see how the game plays, because you enjoy playing the game, you go into the closet. And maybe your character doesn't die because the DM has something unexpected and it just gets brutally injured, or maybe it's something else, but it's the flaws that your character has that keeps you grounded in, okay, my character's not me, but he is me, or she is me, and it helps create that separate...
I think that's more role-playing 101 in general than
yes, but that kind of system...
I think including the merit and flaw paradigm helps people get in touch.
That's what I was saying, is that system
is
a nice system. And I'm glad AMP has it, is what it is.
For me, just role-playing in general, the first, official role-playing I did was Mutoid Age, which we were playing in a system which also had merits and flaws. So like that's kind of always been a part of my role playing experience, which is good for me.
Merits and flaws are great because they let you break the standard level 1 character mold and go in crazy directions.
Mm-hmm.
And if you balance it a certain way, you get really odd results.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason it's a staple of the White Wolf games.
What else was I
like the idea of the meta plot, but that's because I like Orpheus.
Yes, the meta plot was neat. It had, if you had have just read the meta plot and basically said, okay, we're starting right after the president gets shot. Spoilers.
We've said it like 15 times already.
Yeah. So if you started like right after the year 1 thing happened, and then pretended like year 2 doesn't exist or something, and again, this is not for that diehard fan that wants to play it all the way through, but if you had just gone with, okay, this is the backstory of the world, it creates a really nice backstory, and you can play off of that.
I agree with that. Amp Year 1, the end of Year 1, creates an excellent, what's called in the industry, a year 0 for the game to start at.
Yeah.
Basically, if you take the entire book up to that point as the starting point, you can run a fairly in-depth game with a fairly rich cast of characters and events that are happening that you can kind of pull in any direction you want.
And I'm sure if you took the end of year 2, you could do the same thing with the end of year 2, which is a really neat, it gives that other, as you were saying, if you're that diehard fan, you play through year 1 the way it should be, through, all 3 or 4 or 5 different factions as you go through. So that gives you a number of playthroughs.
Mm-hmm.
And then you play through and then you play the end of year 1 as if what you think would happen next without any cares for the future. And then the third, you can play it again still with no cares for the future right from the beginning of year 1. So that gives, by the end of that playthrough, you've now played one of each faction, which, let's say 4 factions. So you've gone through 4 times there. Then the 5th time you play through is at the end of year 1. And then the 6th time you play through is at the beginning of year 1 without any cares. That's 6 playthroughs just for year 1.
Yep.
That's fairly...
It gives material to groups who want to hold fast to it. And I think we talked a lot about the pre-made adventures, but there's also what you call the faction guides. Like there's one for Typhoon, Seekers of Enlightenment, and whatnot. And those actually do a fairly good job of expanding on the benefits of those factions as well as the powers most commonly used by their members. There's a lot of good material support out there.
I think there's also a few missions inside of those ones as well.
There are.
Which is, and then again...
We didn't touch them because the majority of those faction books came out in year 2, and we just weren't there yet.
Yeah. Then also, I did like just the sheer depth and the amount of characters they have. Now, the amount of background characters, like, as a GM, I can just pull a character off of this list, or off of one of the side stories, if we're never going to do those side stories. Or if I want to make a world where you guys don't even... where I'm not going to care about the main meta plot or whatever. I can just pull characters, and maybe those are backer characters and whatever, but I'm glad they're there.
Yeah, definitely.
It gives me a lot of stuff to pull from. Like, someone's gone through the work of creating this character's backstory. It's I don't personally think it's a great backstory for that character, but you know what? It's a backstory I didn't have to create. And I can edit it if I want, or maybe I'd love that backstory. Maybe that's the best backstory, and I couldn't even have thought of that. Now I have it, and now I can put it into the plot, and
the game definitely benefits from there being a birth of NPCs, and at least every supplement gives you at least 1 or 2 new ones as well.
Yeah.
Where it really hits its stride is in year 2 material, where NPCs that showed up in year 1 material actually show up in year 2, and they've advanced or changed in certain ways.
That's cool.
And gotten updates to their backstory. For example, there's some dude who's a healer who goes around murdering people because he's a vigilante and he's also a healer, right? He's called like Syringe or Red Cross or whatever. And in year 2, he was indoctrinated into the Suicide Squad, and now instead of being this kind of vigilante medical dude who's trying to save people, he's an assassin that you have to deal with.
And see that as like resources for the GM, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Just so, like, the GM doesn't have to build these characters. Let's say there's Sponge, who's this little side character, that they were like, oh, she just goes off and does her own thing and whatever. Well, in year 2, if they have an upgrade for Sponge, then the GM doesn't have to upgrade him. And they don't have to deal with what would have happened with, and yeah.
All right.
It's always into something where it's like, Metaplot is nice in that you can just completely ignore it and things will happen anyway, so you don't really have to take part if you just want to play a game where it's in that universe.
Yeah.
Just ignore everything and it'll be happening anyway.
Yep. So the universe itself, competently created, would we say?
It does what it sets out to do.
Yeah.
No, it's a nice universe. It's got interesting plot points. It's got neat stuff throughout it. You can't edit things, which is a bit of a
Yeah, it has a ripple
trick,
effect. You
but-
change something in year 1 and it affects the following
But
years.
with that said, I mean, there is ways of... If you are going the full, I'm super good kind of superhero path, you shouldn't want to change most of the things too much. But, yeah.
AMP is not mutants and masterminds, and it is not any of those generic systems where you're building a superhero game. AMP has a very specific story it's telling, and if you want to engage with that, then yeah, play it out straight.
Yep.
It has the potential to be a sandbox, which is nice, but it is clearly intended to run within the story it's telling.
Which is a good story, again. So there's nothing wrong with that.
It's at least as good as Heroes. Like season 1 Heroes, it's a self-contained superhero arc story.
Yeah. I really like season 1.
It's complex.
Yeah, people like season 1s of Heroes. Yeah. It was the good one.
I didn't mind. The rest of it went a little bit crazy, but I didn't mind the overall.
Writer's strike, man.
I don't remember most of it.
A carnival shows up.
Yeah, I don't remember most of it past Siler being amazing.
Yeah, I liked the later seasons. He went. Spoilers, he went good.
He went good, then bad, then good, then bad.
And their dad's alive, and he's their brother.
And weird, and it was...
Right, he's their brother, right?
No, it's so stupid.
Or is that a lie?
Yeah, it was weird, but at the same time, he was just a really well-played character.
Zachary
so I was like,
Quinto.
I don't care, so I'm just going to keep watching this because I like you.
God-awful soap opera.
Yeah, like American Horror Story, which Zachary Quinto was also in before he became Spock.
He shows up, and we're like, oh, it's like, oh, he's gonna be a villain because he's Siler, and then I'm like, oh, well, no, he just seems like a really normal guy. Oh, fuck, never mind.
Yeah.
For American Horror Story,
Fuck.
He's a great actor.
Anyway, anything else we want to talk about with Amped?
I don't think so.
Mechanics.
Maybe make. I don't know if that's just how you were running it or how it's written, but the factions were all like just really obviously evil. Like
yeah.
I think we had mentioned this before, but like that's something that really stands out to me. Like especially the one that's like it's clearly trying to be pushed to be the hero faction, but they're villains. There's fucking euthanize or
Which would be fine if they weren't pushed to be the heroes in the novel.
You cannot do Shades of Grey like that in a story where you're representing them as the good guy. Aberrant got it right. The Project Utopia / Team Tomorrow, you're supposed to think they're the good guy, and then the rug gets pulled onto you that they're secret Nazis.
Yeah. Like, your characters weren't supposed to find out about the euthanization, or not the sterilization thing, until
even out of character, it's jarring.
But yeah, out of character, you're right. It is jarring. It's
the fiction plays them up as good guys, and what they are doing is clearly suspect at the most generous interpretation.
Yeah.
Whereas in Aberrant, with Project Utopia, they don't give them a generous writing. They don't sugarcoat exactly what Project Utopia is, which is trying to safeguard humanity, not Nova's. So I think that definitely needs a touch up.
And I kind of hope it does fall apart in year 2 and year 3, where it's kind of revealed more.
Especially where everyone's like, okay, guys, they're obviously evil. Yeah, I hope the fiction doesn't keep thinking that they're the good guys, because they're clearly not.
Even the characters we met in game kept talking it up, like that rabbit dude and stuff like that. I mean, in fairness, his power, he didn't want his powers.
That for me makes sense. That character makes sense. But yeah, if like the books keep trying to present them as the good guys, and like the other NPCs keep thinking they're the good guys, it's like.
It makes me want to fight them more.
Clearly not.
It does border on suism.
Yeah, it's what led us to cause that huge confrontation in game, was their continual insistence that what they were doing was okay.
Yeah.
So, I think that's it. I think we're wrapping.
Yeah.
Yeah, AMP year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however it's going to go. We like it. I think, I definitely could see a future where we'd come back to it after it's all been released.
Oh yeah, I would definitely love to.
Yeah, I really would like to see where it goes from there. I would recommend people check it out if they would like a superhero game that plays to the kind of story that Heroes and Aberrant and... No, we use Masterminds, but like Aberrant, Heroes, what else is on? I think Gotham kind of plays it up a bit too. Where there's this kind of roving metaplot happening and the people involved aren't crazy yet till they become super crazy. It emulates that fairly well. You can play whatever superhero you want
There's a lot of
from fiction.
types.
The combos are there. I would even go so far as to say that if you're interested, you should kickstart the next few Kickstarters they put out for year 4 and year 5.
If I remember correctly, it wasn't even that crazy expensive. It was a really reasonable price. So.
I'm tempted to. I don't want to make any promises and be a liar, but I'm tempted to say that I'd probably kickstart year 4 and year 5 when they come out.
Yeah.
Yeah. After all that, we still have really good things to say about it, and we're really positive. This is probably one of the more professional indie presses that have come out. The Eloy has been very upfront with the delays and what's been going on. I think he had another kid, and it's a very small team working on it. And they do a good job. They curate a nice community. They even commented on our stuff, and we're fairly small time as well.
Yeah.
So, having that kind of connection with the fan base is great.
That's, I think we mentioned when we talked about this one, the very first episode we did, we kind of said, this is on Kickstarter, go check it out sort of thing. And we mentioned how Kickstarter communities can either be, really great or really bad.
Yeah, and the really bad is stuff like, you get those people who freak out like the sky is falling, or who get really upset if you criticize their stuff.
Yeah.
And that doesn't seem like that at all.
No,
it seems like a fairly level-headed community.
Yeah. It's there, and it's not too hard.
They're not the X3 Kickstarter community.
Future Kickstarters, it's not hard to be a great Kickstarter. Send your backers updates once a week, once every 2 weeks. Be upfront, be honest with them, and ask them for help, because your backers are your backers. They're there to have your back.
Yeah, and they want it to succeed.
They want it to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
They want to see it. They like you already. You don't need to, and I think a lot of Kickstarters fear that their backers are going to turn on them, when backers just want to help.
And backers definitely don't want to have to put a lot of work into something. I went through the trouble of getting Exalted refunded, and it was a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
And I would have rather not. I would have rather the product would have been good or released or not a fraud.
Yeah.
So your Kickstarter backer, your average one, doesn't want to go through the trouble of contacting Kickstarter and starting getting the refund process done.
No.
They just want to turn off their brain, not pay attention, and then a couple of months, maybe a year down the road, they look one day and boom, the product's delivered.
Yep, and then they want to be ecstatic that, oh my gosh, this thing came, it's amazing, I love it so much.
And then the hype train starts up again.
Yep, and that's, I've backed a number of great things on Kickstarter.
I actually wanted to mention that. I wanted to mention the Kickstarter aspect, because Ian here is kind of our resident Kickstarter guru.
Yeah, I love Kickstarter. I think...
he has a budget lined out of his income for Kickstarter yearly.
I would have backed year 3. I hate to say it, I didn't, because my budget, unfortunately, as Devin said, I lined my budget all out, and year 3, unfortunately, was at the end of the budgeting scale. But year 4 and year 5, I'm 99% sure I'll be there.
Yeah, one of us at least.
Barring unforeseen crazy things, I liked this game. I'd like to see how it ends, and I'd like to see how it plays out.
Yeah. So, this is sponsored by nobody. All of us here giving, AMP Year 1 a buy. So this is Devin.
Kevin.
Ian.
And Nicole.
You have yourselves a good one, listeners.